Dakar. Promoting dialogue.
It's 6 p.m. in Dakar, Monrovia, and Accra, 7 p.m. in Abuja and Porto Novo. Good evening and many thanks for staying tuned to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM from Dakar, Senegal, and around the world on wadr.org. Welcome to Newslink. Here are the top stories. 34 Nigerian soldiers killed in Bani Bangu near Mali border in an attack by suspected terrorists. ECOWAS commences economic summit in Abuja to find innovative solutions to the region's pressing economic challenges.
Free trade exists in Africa. It is just not fair because all the cross-border movements through the illegal border crossings are traders. But once we now start to move from that informal, tribal-driven trade system to the formal, sovereign-driven trade system, you now start to get conflicts.
Former Ivorian President Gbagbo joins forces with opposition leader Chiam ahead of October presidential election.
Tell those who want to listen that I will not give up in the fight against the 4 mandates.
And pressure mounts in Togo for Nyasingbe's resignation. Please stay tuned for details of these stories and more.
Christopher Aticho with Newslink.
Many thanks for joining our broadcast. The Newslink begins with some security matters in the Sahel region, particularly the central state of Niger, where military defense or the Ministry of Defense has revealed that at least 34 Nigerian soldiers were killed during an armed attack in the Bani Bangu, a town near Mali. According to Niger's Ministry of Defense, 14 soldiers sustained injuries in the attack and are receiving medical attention. The ministry, in a statement, explained that the attack in Bani Bangu was carried out by a group of mercenaries that arrived in 8 vehicles and rode on more than 200 motorcycles. However, the Defense Ministry stated that the forces killed dozens of insurgents during the clash. In the meantime, search operations, both on land and in the air, are ongoing to locate the attackers. The Sahelian region of West Africa has been experiencing a surge in terrorist attack, particularly targeting military formations. Crossing over, the West African Economic Summit has officially kicked off in Abuja, bringing together heads and hundreds of delegates from across the Sahel region. These representatives will together explore bold and innovative solutions to the region's pressing economic challenges. The summit also comes days after the ECOWAS Heads of State and Government Roundtable on Sunday. WADR's Yachenu Sasetu reports live from Abuja.
In her welcome address, Nigeria's Minister of State for Foreign Affairs described the summit as more than just a meeting. It is, in her words, a platform for a shared West African identity.
This legacy has forged a shared identity, one that drives collective progress and is strengthened through unified diplomacy. This gathering is a landmark event. It is a bold affirmation of our region's collective will to deepen economic cooperation, unlock our immense trade and investment potential, and craft a future of shared prosperity for the peoples of West Africa.
The first panel discussion zeroed in on the barriers to trade within the region. Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment of Nigeria, Jumoke Oduwole, emphasized the need to lower the cost of capital for small and medium enterprises.
And so as we sit down and we do our own designs locally, let's not forget that our competitors are not only within the continent. Most of them are actually far away in Asia, manufacturing, whether it's pharmaceutical products, whether it's food products, household consumables, leveraging whichever border makes sense to them based on duty and exchange regimes, and bringing their products here, and therefore giving CG Customs sleepless nights.
Meanwhile, Chairman of TGI Group, Farouk Gumel, talked about the importance of unity across the continent, saying Africa must eliminate trade barriers and act as one economic bloc to move forward.
Free trade exists in Africa. It is just not fair because all the cross-border movements through the illegal border crossings are traders. But once we now start to move from that informal, tribal-driven trade system to the formal, sovereign-driven trade system, you now start to get conflicts. And that is where we should now start to look at a bottom-up approach.
As the summit continues, expectations are high for actionable strategies that will boost regional trade, empower local businesses, and deepen economic integration across West Africa. For WADR, Yechinu Sasitu in Abuja.
Let's still stay a while longer in Nigeria for some legal matters between the Kogi Central Senator, Natasha Akpochu-Nduegan, and the federal government. The embattled lawmaker was arraigned before the Abuja High Court on 3 counts, including defamation against the President of the Senate, Godswill Akpabio, and one individual. The court, after a brief session, released Natasha on a $32,000 bail bond and adjourned the hearing to September 23, 2025, while her defense team assures of readiness for the full trial. Supporters of Senator Natasha from the civil and legal community have criticized the federal government involvement in what they say is a civil matter. As Francis Boniface reports, she has accused Senate President Godswill Akpabio of sexual harassment.
The Kogi Central Senator Natasha Akpochu-Nduegan appeared before the High Court on Thursday, accompanied by her husband, Chief Nduegan, a former minister, Obiezekwe-Sili, famous activist Aisha Yusufu, and numerous supporters. The federal lawmaker faces 3 counts of charges bordering on alleged defamation of Senate President Godswill Akpabio and former governor of Kogi State, Yahaya Bello. After a brief hearing session, Senator Natasha Akpochu-Nduegan was released on a 50 million naira or $32,000 bail bond. Dressed in her usual Indian-like garment, the embattled lawmaker spared a few words to her supporters.
Very grateful to Nigerians for their love, prayers, and support.
Her defense counsel, surrounded by journalists after the hearing, said very little as the case was adjourned to September 23, 2025.
We intend to cope and comply with the conditions of bail, and we are ready for trial. The matter has been adjourned. Pray for us and wish us good luck.
A freedom fighter and Bring Back Our Girls campaigner, Aisha Yusufu, expressed dissatisfaction with the process. She decried attempts by the federal government of Nigeria to frustrate the original case of sexual harassment.
Why is it that the federal government is not taking on the sexual harassment allegations that were made? Why are they selective in the way they're doing? It is between Senator Akpabio and Senator Natasha. On what basis is the federal government coming in when a lot of the petition that Senator Natasha herself had put out has not been done? We can't continue to have selective justice. Selective justice is injustice. And the more this keeps going on, if they can do it to her, who else is safe in this country?
The government, citing Section 391 of the Penal Code, Cap 89, Laws of the Federation 1990, accused Senator Natasha Akpochu-Nduegan of making imputation, knowing or having reason to believe that such imputation will harm the reputation of a person.
Francis Boniface reporting there. In Ghana, the Chinese ambassador to the country, His Excellency Tong Defa, has stirred national controversy by asserting that Ghana can never eliminate illegal mining, also known locally as galamsey, and must instead find ways to manage its environmental impact. Addressing journalists at a media interaction in Accra, the envoy blamed Ghanaians, not Chinese nationals, for the deepening galamsey crisis. Insisting that locals are the ones facilitating the illegal activity. The ambassador's comment comes amid renewed national outrage over the environmental devastation caused by galamsey. Civil society groups, including the Ghana Coalition Against Illegal Mining, have called for stronger action against financiers and political actors behind the illegal trade. Listen to the Chinese ambassador.
I do not know what's the reason why when people say galamsey, they normally equals that with Chinese. But actually, it is not Chinese who, the issue is not originated from Chinese. I mean, you can see those mining, Chinese people cannot get the license, cannot get the permit. It's the Ghanaian people who draw Chinese people over here, and some of those people who are even caught red-handed, even though they are caught red-handed, they're just some like migrant workers to come here to make a living. I'm not treated well. because they always say, because I have a social media, when I posted X on my social media, then people say, hey, Ambassador, Galamsey, it seems, Galamsey is caused by China. So this is unfair to me. Am I correct? This is unfair to me. This is really unfair to me. And unfair to the overwhelming majority of Chinese. They have involved a lot of sectors. You can see, you can say, a lot of buildings built by Chinese companies, your roads built by Chinese companies, your port built by Chinese companies. But is any normal Ghanaian people know about this? Or even they know it, they always say Ganamsi. They always say Ganamsi.
And that's Chinese ambassador to the country, His Excellency Ton Defa. Well, various environmental watchers have reacted to the statement and will be bringing you their reactions in our subsequent bulletin.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Crossing over to Togo, tensions are rising ahead of series of protests sparked by social media, demanding the resignation of Fonya Asimbe, the president of the Council of Ministers. On June 6, a significant demonstration was held in the capital, Lomé, to protest against poor governance, high cost of living, and the arrest of dissenting voices. This protest was suppressed by law enforcement, with approximately 50 people arrested and several others were later released. Meanwhile, major demonstrations are set to take place in the coming weeks in Lomé. Augustine Colley has the details.
Since the June 6 demonstration in Lomé against the government, authorities have not yet determined who was behind the protests or whether social media played a role in mobilizing participants. This time, the organizers plan to barricade major roads in the capital Lomé on the nights of June 25 to 26. Their objective is to prevent law enforcement from entering working-class neighborhoods to suppress the protesters. The organizers expect that these actions will disrupt traffic and slow down activities in the area. They have also promised to hold a large rally at the Dove of Peace in Lomé and intend to march towards the National Assembly and other government institutions. The aim of the protest organizers is to paralyze the capital until Fonya Asimbe resigns. This protest plan has been announced as the Minister of Territorial Administration continues his national tour, meeting with traditional leaders. He has called on the traditional leaders to support the government's efforts to calm the social climate, especially with municipal elections approaching in just a few weeks.
Augustine Colley with that report. Still in Togo, the dynamic Monseigneur Wadr, DMK, a group of political parties today, have expressed their support for the popular demonstration plan for June 27, 27 and 28. The group also calls on the population, especially young people, to come out of the shadows and make themselves heard. Thomas Newslink is the general coordinator of the group.
At the
level of the DMK, it is our duty. At the time of these demonstrations, the Togolese people ask the DMK to be behind the youth to support them so that the struggle can finally be completed. Our call to the place of the Togolese army is to ask this army, which is a Republican army, to stand by the people because the people are oppressed. As we know that it is the Togolese taxpayer who pays the Togolese army, this popular uprising concerns them as well.
Thomas Newslink is the general coordinator of the DMK movement. In neighboring Burkina Faso, the government has banned the use of mobile phones by army on the front lines of the fight against insurgency. The transitional president, Captain Ibrahim Traoré, has threatened to dismiss any soldier who uses these devices on the front line. Experts also warned that cell phones can distract soldiers on duty and make it easier for armed terrorist groups to carry out attacks. Imo Edit completes the story.
Captain Ibrahim Traoré made these remarks to soldiers at the National Commando Training Center in Po, in the south-central region of Burkina Faso. The Burkinabe president clarified that any soldier caught using a smartphone during military operations will be punished and dismissed from the ranks of the Burkinabe army.
Those who will show themselves unable to change, to drop their phones during the operation, we will chase them out of our ranks and punish them severely severely. Can you imagine? You are in detachment on your position. Good soldiers are going up the faction, concentrated at their posts. They finish, they go down, and a saboteur finds himself at the post with his phone until the enemy approaches and attacks, and the good soldiers can die in their rest.
Meanwhile, security analyst Yemboini Lumpo confirms that cell phones pose a risk to the success of military operations.
When a soldier is deployed to the front, he is in 3 positions. A moment of distraction on his smartphone can have fatal consequences for him, for his comrades, and for the whole mission.
The security specialist expresses the importance of raising awareness among frontline soldiers about the use of smartphones. Beyond this ban, he recommends the need for decompression activities within the military.
People who are cut off from their families, people who are cut off from their leisure. The environment must be really framed. We must create rest areas, create recreation spaces, libraries, and simple gyms.
Lumpo also calls for psychological support for soldiers and strengthening trust between the military hierarchy and soldiers on operations.
A report by WADR's correspondent Martin Kaba in Ouagadougou and voiced by Imo Edits. You're still listening to Newslink here on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and around the world on wadr.org. We are also live on Facebook at WADR English Service, as well as YouTube at WADR News. Here's a reminder of our top stories. 34 Nigerian soldiers killed in Bani Bongo near Mali border in an attack by suspected terrorists. ECOWAS commences economic summit in Abuja to find innovative solutions to the region's pressing economic challenges. Former Ivorian President Laurent Gbagbo joins forces with opposition leader Tijani Chiam ahead of the upcoming October presidential election, while also mounting pressure mounts on Togo for Gnassingbé's resignation. Still ahead in the news, the African American Association of Senegal calls on African leaders to exhibit prudent leadership and prudent use of natural resources. We do have the guest interview and sports news. Please stay with us.
Fresh and breaking news all the time. Hear it first as the news breaks, only on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Let me take you to Côte d'Ivoire, where former President Laurent Gbagbo and opposition leader Tijani Chiam have formed a joint political front to challenge the ruling government. Their primary goal is to oppose President Alassane Ouattara's candidacy for the presidential election scheduled for October 2025. Additionally, this opposition unity aims to advocate for the re-registration of key political opponents on the electoral list before the upcoming elections. Abdoulaye Hassan reports.
The PPACI of former Ivorian President Laurent Gbagbo and Tijani Chiam's PDCI party signed a political agreement on Thursday in Abidjan, formalizing the upcoming creation of a united front. The two opposition parties now hope to be joined by others to ensure that the opposition speaks with one voice. Soumaila Bredomi is the spokesperson for the PDCI.
Processed before the presidential election in October 2025 to review the electoral list as provided by the Electoral Code, which presents numerous anomalies put into view by all the majority political parties, including the PPACR and the PDCR-RDA.
However, it's important to note that Laurent Gbagbo, Tijani Chiam, Charles Blé Goudé and Guillaume Soro, who have all declared their candidacies for the presidency, have been removed from the electoral roll by court order. As a result, they are ineligible to run in the upcoming election. Despite this setback, Laurent Gbagbo expressed his support for the formation of this common political front, emphasizing its necessity for respecting democracy in the country.
Tell those who want to listen that I will not give up in the fight against the 4 mandates.
The former president reaffirmed his commitment to fighting for an inclusive election next October, which should include the participation of all major opposition political players.
Abdullah Hassan with that report. Back here in Senegal, the African American Association of Senegal has called on African leaders to exhibit prudent leadership and effective usage of the continent's resources for African development, joining the rest of the world to commemorate this year's June 19th, also known as the Juneteenth, which marks the 160th anniversary of the emancipation of the last group of enslaved Africans in Texas, USA. The association called for critical sensitization and education to ensure the mental emancipation from the current forms of neocolonialism. As Sankole Janko reports, the celebration in Dakar was aimed to unite the African American diaspora along with other Africans in the spirit of shared celebration.
The transatlantic slavery remains one of the dark days and chapters in the African history, with over millions of Africans losing their dignity to the inhumane act. During the fight for emancipation of Africans enslaved in America, slaves in Texas state were the last to be notified of their freedom on June 19, 1865, giving rise to this annual celebration of June 19 or Juneteenth. Celebrated in Texas and other states of America annually, this year's event was not of a difference. However, the African American Association of Senegal held its maiden edition in Dakar with the aim of uniting the African American diaspora along with other Africans in the spirit of shared celebration. Trucaria, executive board member of the association, called for desensitization and education to ensure mental emancipation from the current forms of neocolonialism, while calling for effective leadership.
Teaching our children about our history. You know, in America, they're stripping the history away from history classes. To be an intentional leader, you never know the influence that you may have, and your past doesn't dictate your future. So yes, we have a traumatic past, but it doesn't mean that we have to have a traumatic future.
Others, Black Americans and Africans at the event, shared varying views of learning lessons from the past and building a robust continent.
Emancipation now is us emancipating ourselves from the mental slavery that still exists in school systems, that still exists in cultural hegemony in places like America, London, Canada, all those places that still see African people as lesser than. This is very important.
Although it is our history from the States and in America, I think it involves everyone due to the transatlantic slave trade. I think what's really cool here is inviting others, really just embracing everyone and sharing our cultures with each other.
Aside the day's reflections of history, the event was also a moment of shared joyous festivity of African American cuisine, culture, and networking opportunities.
Sankole Janko filed the reports.
Politics, analysis on major news, social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
Our guest this evening is Nigeria's famous freedom fighter and activist Aisha Yusufu. Yusufu, the campaigner of Bring Back Our Girls movement, speaks to WADR about the comments on Thursday at the Abuja High Court when she accompanied and battled federal lawmaker Natasha Akpoju-Nduegan. The female senator was arraigned on 3 counts of defamation and, after a brief hearing, granted bail for the sum of $32,000. Our guest responding to the case, which has been adjourned to September 23, 2025, she said nothing but selective justice.
One of the reasons why I referred to that was the fact that the same Senator Natasha had filed petition against the Senate president and accused him of sexual harassment. This is a petition that she filed to the Nigerian police, and they haven't done anything, about it. They have not taken on the case. They have not touched it. They have not responded. They have done nothing about it. And then here we come, after she had filed that, and she alleged that there was, plots to kill her, to assassinate her, involving the Senate president and also a former governor of her state, Yahaya Bello. Her state is Kogi State in Nigeria. And the next thing that we have is that the federal government, and so Senator Akpabio, they had done petition to the police, and the federal government is now, prosecuting Senator Natasha. So for me, that's selective. If you say you're for justice, someone's right has been infringe upon, or you think that, defamation had been done, and the state, out of lack of work to do, decides that it's going to prosecute, why then have they not, also prosecuted the Senate president for the sexual allegation petition that Senator Natasha had also done? And on the issue also of flood to her life, she had also made this petition known. And we saw on the floor where the Senate president had read out that her security were going to be taken away from her.
Are you aware, if at all, Senator Natasha followed through the petition to the police over the alleged sexual harassment by her principal officer?
How is one supposed to follow through? Is there a particular mechanism that is different from certain citizens and different from other citizens? You do a petition, you send it in. You do a petition alleging plot to your life, you send it in. Nothing is done about it. And the reason why, I made that statement categorically is because it's something that I know the police does a lot. I've had people who have sent in petition, and the police, with the Nigerian police force, will deliberately not act upon it. But there are certain ones that they act upon. We cannot continue to have, separate, laws or institutions being used separately depending on whom a person is or the kind of connection that the person has at a particular time. I have said it repeatedly, and I will repeat it here, that unfortunately for us, the Nigerian police force had allowed, even the judiciary itself, has allowed itself to be a tool against the people, and then they're used to get at the people, to go after the people, instead of protecting the people that is supposed to be its constitutional duty.
As you urge for transparency in this process, which of course many will hope that it becomes a clear example of an effective and impartial judicial system or justice system in Nigeria, what is at stake here? Because as we speak, Senator Natasha is 6-month suspension from the parliament and parliamentary activities. Technically speaking, parliamentary immunity has been lifted or removed.
A lot of things are involved here. First of all, we see a judiciary that has lost its power because even within the process of that, her removal, before a removal, there was an injunction, I believe, that was by the courts to halt that whole process. The National Assembly did not listen to the judiciary. They refused to. And so you first of all see a situation whereby the politicians that we have, whether elected or appointed, they decide what to obey and what not to obey from the judiciary. That's on one hand. On the other hand also, you find that there are cases, a lot of people have gone to court, and there are rulings that the House does not have the right to suspend a member from performing his or her legislative duties because it's the people that voted for that person. Continuously, you've seen the houses that we had, both the National Assembly and the State Houses of Assembly, they have continued to refuse to obey this ruling, of the court. You now have millions of people who voted for someone. They no longer have representatives at the National Assembly, and they are left without that leadership. We have the issue of sexual harassment, which is a major issue, unfortunately, in Nigeria. A lot of women, a lot of vulnerable people, even sometimes men, have faced sexual harassment, and it's been an ongoing issue where people who are in power, they use it to intimidate people. You find that some people losing the promotions they're supposed to have, being taken to some places where their growth has stunted just because they refuse the advances of people who have power. So it's a whole lot of things attached to this. So it's not a Natasha Akpabio issue. No, it's about a whole lot of different systemic issues that we have that are all packed into one particular case.
Nigerian freedom fighter and activist Aisha Yusufu. And in sports this evening, Ghana has been paired with Nigeria and Benin in Group A of the WAFU Zone B Under-20 Cup of Nations in Accra 2025 edition. The three countries will compete for a place in the semi-finals of the competitions, with 2 slots available in each group. In Group B, Cote d'Ivoire will also do battle with Burkina Faso, Niger and Togo. The third edition of the WAFU Zone B Under-20 Cup of Nations is scheduled for Pram from July 10 to 23, 2025 in Ghana. The regional tournament serves as a key development platform for younger talent across West Africa, often acting as a qualified for the Under-20 African Cup of Nations. And that ends it for sports this evening. And with that, we've come to the end of today's edition of Newslink here on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Mustafa Sek and Sheikh Jai for the technical assistance. Do interact with us via our social media platforms, X, formerly Twitter, Instagram at WADR News, and on Facebook at WADR English Service. I am Christopher Aticho. Good evening and enjoy the rest of our broadcasts.
And many thanks to you for listening to Newslink via Hot 104.3 FM, New Me FM 90.